Before I call Brett Hudson, I am going to indicate to the member I did reflect on his comments, and he is accurate. I was too loose on the minister, and when he had a very broad. But I think it's happened now on both sides, and we will speak to part 1 of the bill, which is very narrow and goes down just to clause 8. Mr. Hudson.
I'll retain my comments on retention payments to part 2 as you request, sir. I just will draw attention, of course, to why we're here to debate this. And of course, the changes, the amendments we're making are in fact all about providing a productive, efficient and accountable construction sector. And I think the really key things we're doing here, Mr. Chair, is, as the Minister has said, one of the key changes we're making in part 1, in fact, is to ensure that residential construction activities and projects will receive full and equal access to the processes under the Act. So in fact, we are just making an amendment to have a definition for construction activities and not a separation or distinction between what might be commercial and what might be residential. And in fact, I think we can take it as read that by making them the same, they do get full and equal treatment. But I would be happy to have the Minister, if he feels it might be appropriate, to perhaps just give us some illustration as to the risks that might exist today under the existing provisions, that the treatments are different for different forms of construction, and that elucidation might help give members across the House some greater confidence as to why the specific provision change, or in fact what the specific change will achieve in reality for people that are undertaking work. It also, of course, does widen the scope to include those activities and services that are in a construction that are provided by architects, by engineers and also by quantity surveyors. So it makes sure that those rather important design and construction activities are also caught within the scope of the provisions of the bill. But the part I would like to talk about and focus on in part 1, as it is obviously very key, is the amendment to section 9 of the Act, which is in fact when these provisions will take effect. And the SOP that the Minister has introduced sets in a commencement date, if you will, or a time of validity of the 31st of March 2016. Now that, Mr. Chair, will give the industry a full year to adjust to all of the changes that this bill will introduce, including the ones we're not going to talk about right now, but which will in fact require change within industry, which is around retentions. We won't cover the retentions themselves, but the start date is very relevant for that, because it makes sure that those parties have sufficient enough time to prepare themselves, their systems, their processes, and to be able to conduct business in accordance with the new provisions. Mr. Chair, I would note that this SOP is changing the start date in effect by over 6 months. I think that's taking on board feedback from industry and others that were we to rush into this too quickly, then we would have a whole suite of obligations, but really just not give the people who are obliged to comply with them sufficient time to get everything in place they might need to ensure that the consumers or the purchasers, the ones whom we're looking really to provide protection to, could have sufficient confidence that the new provisions were in place and being administered fully. So it is good to see that we have extended out a bit, as I've said, to ensure that industry has sufficient time to get all of their processes in place. Mr. Chair, I do look forward to the next part of this bill, where we'll get into some meat of both supplementary order papers and a discussion which I think we're all looking forward to on retention payments, but that is not to diminish the importance of part 1, and particularly, as I've said, the start date for when the provisions of the amendment will come into force. Thank you.